So in this video we'll be discussing about necrosis, the type of necrosis, histology, and at last we will deal with a few MCQs from this topic which have been asked in various exams. So we will first of all describe what is necrosis. Necrosis is actually localized death of tissue. So this is a cell. The cell has undergone death. This is a dead cell, and the dead cell will subsequently release certain hydrolytic enzymes. Dead cell release certain hydrolytic enzymes. These hydrolytic enzymes will cause degradation of cell, that is, this cause degradation of cell into necrotic debris. We see necrotic debris here. Necrotic debris, and this is invariably associated with some inflammatory reaction. So we can see the neutrophils, which are the inflammatory cells here. So at first the death of the cell occurs. From the dead cell, certain hydrolytic enzymes are released from the lysosomes, and these enzymes will cause degradation of the cell into necrotic debris, and we can see accumulation of inflammatory cells here. So it is invariably associated with inflammatory reaction. So what is necrosis? Necrosis is localized death of tissue followed by release of hydrolytic enzymes causing degradation of dead cell. Degradation of dead cell, and this is invariably associated with invariably associated with inflammation. There are two main features seen in necrosis. We know that two main features seen in irreversible cell injury is seen in all type of necrosis. We know that necrosis of the cell is a sequelae of irreversible cell injury. So two main features of irreversible cell injury which is seen in all type of necrosis are: because of release of hydrolytic enzymes, the cell cytoplasm becomes highly eosinophilic. That is, intensely eosinophilic cytoplasm is a feature of necrosis. Cytoplasm becomes eosinophilic. That is, if this is the cell, it becomes intensely eosinophilic. And what happens? Because of the release of proteases. Proteases is an enzyme, and because of the release of proteases, the nucleus undergoes certain changes. First of all, the nucleus can undergo condensation, which is called pycnosis. Pycnosis, and it can undergo degradation, segmentation, which is called karyoresis. Karyoresis is a segmentation of nucleus, and it can undergo dissolution. Dissolution is called karyolysis. So these are the features, that is eosinophilic cytoplasm, nuclear changes like pycnosis, karyolysis and karyolysis are the features which are seen in all type of necrosis. Now we will see the type of necrosis. So first of all, we will see the most common type of necrosis, that is coagulative necrosis. Coagulative necrosis, see that it is the most common type of necrosis, and it is caused by irreversible focal injury, mostly from sudden cessation of blood flow. So the cause is sudden cessation of blood flow, which is called ischemia. ischemia as the most common cause, and it occurs less commonly due to bacterial fungal infection and chemical agents. Most common causes ischemia. And what are the organs affected? Organs affected are heart, kidney, spleen. Heart, kidney, and spleen. So now we will see the gross picture. We will first take the example of kidney. So this is the kidney. Middle and cortex can be seen. If the blood supply to this part is cut off, that is blood supply to this part is cut off, what occurs? So that area which is devoid of the blood supply will undergo coagulative necrosis. So that is at early stages. At early stages, this area becomes pale, wedge-shaped, firm and swollen. So this is the early stage in which the area becomes pale, wedge-shaped, firm and swollen. So this is the early stage. And what happens in late stage? Late stage, so this area becomes yellowish, soft and shrunken. So now you will see the picture of the gross specimen here. So this is the picture of a gross specimen of the kidney, which is showing a wedge-shaped infarct. So this is the area which has undergone coagulative necrosis. This is wedge-shaped, yellowish, shrunken, soft area. Wedge-shaped, yellowish, shrunken area, which is the area has undergone coagulative necrosis in the kidney. Now what happens in microscopic picture? Microscopy or histology. Histology. So in coagulative necrosis, you see that if this is the cell, if this is the renal tubular cell, and this is a nucleus, normal cell, normal renal tubular cell. So if it undergoes coagulative necrosis, you can see that the cellular outline is maintained. The cellular outline is maintained, but the cytoplasm becomes intensely eosinophilic. We have said it earlier, this because the release of hydrolytic enzymes, the cytoplasm becomes intensely eosinophilic, and the nucleus undergo pycnosis, karyorrhexis or karyolysis. Nuclear changes are seen. So here there is what happens, there is the cellular outline is maintained. That is, we can distinguish the cell of origin. So the organ of origin of the cell. Cellular origin, cellular outline maintained. But what happens, there is loss of cytoplasmic and nuclear features. Loss of cytoplasmic and nuclear features. Cytoplasm becomes eosinophilic and the nucleus undergoes changes like pycnosis, karyorrhexis or karyolysis. So nuclear changes mentioned above. Nuclear changes. Now we will see the picture of histology and coagulative necrosis. So we can see that this is normal glomerulus in this as the normal renal tubular cells. So in normal cell we can see that there is well defined nucleus and cytoplasm is normal. So this is the area which has undergone coagulative necrosis. We can see that the cellular outline is maintained by the but the cytoplasm, you can see it is intensely eosinophilic and the nucleus cannot be seen here. The nucleus is lost, and midway between the normal cell and the necrosed area there are certain inflammatory cells here and there. So inflammation is seen, the cellular outline is maintained, but nuclear features and cytoplasmic features are lost. The cytoplasm becomes intensely eosinophilic, loss of nuclear features also. But cellular outline is maintained. We can still identify that this cell is renal tubular cell. So that's all about coagulative necrosis. Now we will see liquefative necrosis. So liquefative necrosis is also called colligative necrosis. Colligative necrosis. So it commonly occurs due to ischemic injury and bacterial or fungal infection. Cause is ischemic injury, ischemia, and bacterial or fungal infection. It occurs because of the degradation of tissue by the action of powerful hydrolytic enzyme. So what are the organs affected? It occurs in brain infarct. This is very important. It occurs in brain infarct. So organ which is undergoing liquefative necrosis is brain infarct and abscess cavity. So the two examples which are very important. So now what happens in liquefative necrosis? So we will see the gross picture. In gross picture we will see that, so if this is the brain area, this is the area which is affected with infarct. Infarct area is this. So this region becomes very soft and liquefied and contains necrotic debris. This area becomes soft and liquefied with necrotic debris. Later this becomes a cyst wall. A cyst wall is formed later. So that is the feature, gross feature. You can see that this is the picture of the gross specimen of the brain which is showing liquefative necrosis. You can see that this is the area which is the infarct. This area shows a liquefied soft area with necrotic debris. Later a cyst wall is formed. Now what is the microscopic picture? Microscopic picture. So microscopy of histology. Here the cellular outline is not at all maintained. Cellular outline, this is a normal cell. The cellular outline is lost, leading to some necrotic debris. Because the cell is being digested by some powerful hydrolytic enzyme, the cell is degraded and becomes a necrotic debris. And between this necrotic debris, we can see so many inflammatory cells. And in case of brain tissue, we can see some gliosis, glial cells, glial gliosis can be seen. Myelofibrosis and gliosis can be seen, and there are so many capillaries here and there. And in case of abscess cavity, there are so many granulation tissue with fibroblast also. This is capillaries. You can see inflammatory cells, capillaries. So this is capillaries, gliosis in the brain tissue, and inflammatory cells. So cellular outline is lost and the cell becomes necrotic debris. Inflammatory cells. So this is the picture of histology of liquefative necrosis. You can see this area which shows loss of cellular outline with some necrotic debris and some inflammatory cells, gliosis or fibrosis, and some capillaries there. Now we see what is caseous necrosis. Caseous necrosis. So where this is found? This is found in a foci of tuberculosis infection. Foci of TB infection, and it has features of both coagulative and liquefative necrosis. Features of coagulative and liquefative necrosis. So what is the gross picture here? We see the gross specimen of lymph node. You can see that. So if this is the lymph node, you can see an area which is dry, cheesy. This area is dry, cheesy, soft, granular, and yellowish. Soft, granular, and yellowish. So this is due to the effects of lipopolysaccharides present in the capsule of TB bacilli, that is Mycobacterium tuberculosis. And what is the microscopic picture? Microscopic picture is you can see that the necrosed area is structureless and highly eosinophilic. If this is a necrosed area, it is structureless, eosinophilic, and granular. And the surrounding tissue shows characteristic granulomatous inflammatory reaction. So we can see some epithelioid cells here and there with some interdisposed giant cells of Langerhans and foreign body giant cells. So granulomatous inflammation is seen. So we will see the picture here. You can see the caseous necrosis in lymph node. So we can see that this area is structureless, highly eosinophilic, area, and this is surrounded by regions of granulomatous inflammatory reaction. This is structureless eosinophilic area. So that's all about caseous necrosis. Now we'll discuss about fat necrosis. So this occurs in two clinical cases. One is pancreatic necrosis and other is traumatic fat necrosis. So in pancreatic necrosis, the necrosed pancreas will be releasing some hydrolytic enzyme which will cause necrosis, which will cause the digestion. Lipases are released which will cause digestion of fat. So the neutral fat present in the tissues. So this is the fat cells. Because of release of lipases, the neutral fat present in adipose tissues are converted into fatty acids and glycerol. So these fatty acids complex with calcium to form calcium soaps or saponification. So what will be the gross picture? Gross picture is that you can see here the picture as seen here. Oh, this is a gross picture which appears as yellowish white and firm deposit. You can see yellowish white firm deposits of fat necrosis. Yellowish white firm deposits. So because of the formation of calcium soaps, the necrosed area becomes firmer and chalky white deposits. Some chalky white deposits are seen here. So features are yellowish white firm deposits are seen, and formation of calcium soaps impart a chalky white appearance. Chalky white appearance. So what is a microscopy? What is a microscopy? So microscopically you can see the fat cells becomes cloudy. So the cloudy appearance of fat cells because of the release of lipases and digestion of fat. So the cloudy appearance, cloudy fat cells, these are surrounded by inflammatory cells. Surrounded by inflammatory cells. So the cloudy fat cells surrounded by inflammatory cells. And there will be amorphous granular basophilic material which are calcium soaps. Amorphous granular basophilic material which are calcium soaps. Amorphous granular basophilic material. Which are calcium soaps. So now we will discuss about fibrinoid necrosis. Fibrinoid necrosis. Fibrinoid necrosis is characterized by deposition of fibrin-like material which has the staining properties of fibrin. It is seen in immunological tissue injury. Tissue injury. Examples are immune complex vasculitis. Autoimmune diseases, Orth's reaction, etc. So what is a microscopy? Microscopically, it is identified by brightly eosinophilic hyaline-like deposition in the vessel wall. See that if this is the vessel wall, in the vessel wall we can see brightly eosinophilic hyaline-like deposition. And this is surrounded by nuclear debris of neutrophils. nuclear debris of neutrophils. This is called leukocytoclassis. So you can see the picture here. This is a vessel wall which is showing brightly eosinophilic hyaline like deposition in the vessel wall, which is surrounded by nuclear debris of neutrophils. Now discuss a few questions from this part. Question number 1. Pyogenic infection and brain infarction are associated with. The answer is liquefative necrosis. Second question. Coagulative necrosis is seen in. So this is seen in what? Coagulative necrosis is seen in liver. And the third question. Coagulative necrosis as a primary event is most often seen in all except. So we know that in the CNS liquefative necrosis occurs. So the answer is CNS. And fourth question, liquefative necrosis is seen in. This definitely seen in brain. So option B is the right answer. Thank you for watching this video. To see more videos from my channel, please subscribe our channel Medishare Tips.